please give a warm Georgia Tech welcome to Tom Falk.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm told it's a bad idea to wear red here. So even though I'm a Wisconsin Badger, which is a big red school, and Stanford Cardinal is another red school, I tried to represent here. This is about as close to gold. And so anyway, yeah, you gave my whole speech. I mean, the whole part about Kimberly-Clark. No, I'm actually just going to talk just for about 30 minutes about me and what I do. And I find when I give a lot of these types of speeches, a lot of the big questions for the students out there is like, hey, buddy, how do I get your job? And so we'll tell you a little bit about what I do and who my customers are and what a typical day is like, and give you a little bit of free advice, and then we'll do Q&A, which hopefully will be fun and interesting. So let me talk a little bit about me. So I was born in Waterloo, Iowa. So I'm the oldest of 9 children. So I think that's me, the good-looking one over there. And my dad still lives in Cedar Falls, Iowa. And I went to the University of Wisconsin. I started caddying when I was 12 years old. I earned a caddy scholarship, so that's the Evans Scholarship on there. So I had somebody else pay for my college tuition, which is great. And went to work for Kimberly-Clark 33 years ago. After a while, they sent me to Stanford to do their Sloan program. They paid for that college tuition. So I'm thinking, this is good. I don't have any student loans. This is awesome. Anybody got student loans here today? Not too many. That's pretty good. You guys are well set. So that's good. I've been married for 36 years to the same person. How about that? And that's our son, and he just got married a year ago, so I have a brand new daughter-in-law, so I'm learning about what that's all about and how to be a good in-law. And I'm really an awesome in-law, I think. I try to pick up dinner and do all kinds of other good things, take them on vacations, pay their bills, so it's great. And I like to exercise, so that is not me doing the full Superman on the racquetball court, but I do play racquetball a couple times a week, try to strength train a couple times a week, do some other cardio. I like to row in the summer. I have a house on a lake that I get to go out and do that. So as you go through your career, try to find ways to stay active, because it is a marathon. I mean, we're all working pretty hard during the day, but you need the energy that I think exercise and good sleep gives you to keep performing at a high level. So try to have balance in your life. We're going to talk about work-life balance in a minute as well. So Kimberly-Clark was founded in 1872. That's 144 years ago. So let's just put that in perspective. In 1872, there were no iPhones. There were no telephones. There were no electric light bulbs. There were no automobiles. So that was a very different company than it is today, wouldn't you say? Our first product was newsprint. How many of you read a daily newspaper? Few. Let's have the free Wall Street Journal subscription here somewhere that gets you started on that. But not many people do. And so the companies had to evolve and change over the last 144 years to be in the businesses that we're in. And so that's another story for you, is that you start out your career, and over the course of your career, things change. You have to adapt. You have to learn new things. You have to develop new skills and capabilities. And so even though you're going to get a very fine degree here from Georgia Tech, you have to exit with the attitude of, I am never going to stop learning. And I've got to continue to learn new things, to be relevant, to develop new capabilities, so that I can compete wherever our business is moving to, because it's moving somewhere. You can't always predict how that's going to turn out. Today, we have 43,000 employees. I do not know all of their names, but I know a lot of them. I've been around for a long, long time. And that, for me, is the very best part of the job. And so getting to spend time with great people that are trying to win in the marketplace, they inspire me every time I get a chance to spend some time with them. So we have a bunch of our employees here in the front row. They had to sit in front because they're with me. But just being with them and finding out what they're working on and what they care about, is the best part of what I do every day. So 43,000 employees. Yeah, we're almost $19 billion in net sales. We've got the number 1 or 2 position in about 80 countries. I get to travel to different countries. I did a speaking engagement to a group somewhat like this in Kazakhstan earlier this year. It's my first trip to Kazakhstan. There's a small university there that we recruit at. And so I went and talked to them about Kimberly-Clark and what we're doing and how to think about business and their careers. And about a quarter of the world's population uses our products every day. That's great news, right? Because 3/4 of the population don't use them yet. So we have a huge opportunity to grow. And so you have to constantly be thinking about how do you turn your business into something that can continue to grow. So our business, consumer tissue, personal care, KC Professional. So let me just do a show of hands. How many of you have ever worn a diaper? Okay, you understand our business. You're in the category, right? So yes, we make Huggies diapers. I won't ask about Depend or Poise. Some of your faculty members might be sensitive about that. You know, they're older, and it's a joke, folks. It's okay to work with that. You know. Of course, our Kotex Feminine Care, and then Kleenex, Cottonelle, Scott, and we use many of those brands in our professional environment as well. So terrific businesses. The great thing is people need our products every single day. No matter who's in charge in the country or what's happening economically, people need diapers and bathroom tissue every single day. And so that doesn't mean that there aren't bumps in an international market sometimes that cause you short-term business challenges, but fundamentally we keep coming back to, you know, people need our products every day. We deliver on the essentials for a better life for people all over the world. So that's our goal, lead the world in essentials for a better life. And we do that with 4 key strategies that we think about, and it's built on 4 values. So first strategy is unleash the power of our people. So we start with that, and we started with that other document on 43,000 people. You know, that's the difference. That's what makes businesses work better than anything else. Lots of people have great products, they have great brands, they've got great processes, they have great capability, but the power of a group of people working together to deliver on a business result is something that is really hard to replicate. And so my wish for all of you is that you find yourselves in companies that think this way and feel this way and allow you to have the impact that has you perform at your best. So you all want to go to work for a place that can let you do your best work and where your dreams can come true. And if you have a place like that, that's a pretty powerful place to start a career. And that's been what I've found at Kimberly-Clark, and it's what is my job to keep that going. So it starts with unleashing the power of your people, making sure the best people want to come to work at KC, making sure we've got the right development experiences, the right training, the right opportunities for them to grow and flourish and take their career in whatever direction that it wants to go. Second thing is have a strong, healthy core. So if you don't have a strong core business, then you're going to struggle to grow. So you've got to have a strong core, you've got to have winning products in the market, you've got to have the right capabilities. So we continue to invest in our core to make sure that we've got the best performing diaper everywhere. We've got the softest facial tissue, and that we're winning versus our competition in all the markets that we're in around the world. So if you've got great people, you've got a strong, healthy core, then you've got to think about growth. What can I do to create a better future? Where can I invest in new product areas that didn't exist? Just like the people that did the iPhone and the telephone and the automobile and all those other things that have been invented over the last 140 years. So I believe that if you have a strong team of people that's really powerful and empowered to drive your business, if you've got a strong, healthy core business, if you're investing at the right level for the future, then you're going to deliver consistent business results, that 4th bucket. But it's not that you start out to deliver consistent business results. You start out by doing those other things. You build a strong team. You have a strong core business. You invest at the right level for the future, and the results flow from that. Now, I'm an accountant by training, and so it took me a while to figure that out. I used to think that business was all about math, and that you start with the P&L. But the P&L is the scorecard of all the other stuff that you're doing in the business. And so I'd urge you to think about that as you get into businesses. It's easy to get focused on whatever part of it you're working on, but try to think about that construct. Are we winning in our core markets? Are we investing for the future? Are we investing in our people? If you're doing those things consistently over the long term, you're going to be at a great place and have a winning company. And then those 4 strategies are built on a bedrock of values. So for us, authentic means you show up every day and try to do the right thing and be who you really are and not have to pretend to be somebody else. And so You want to work at a company that is authentic, where you can be different or be who you are and don't have to act differently when you come to work than you do at home or with your family. So certainly authentic is a key part of it. Accountable means we act like owners of the business. So we take decisions in the long-term best interest of the people that own the company, and not short-termism. Innovative means we show up every day wanting to make the company better. And we believe that fresh thinking that adds value is something that we should welcome and try to incorporate wherever we can. And then finally, caring. And sometimes people would see caring on this list and say, big companies, they don't really care. But man, the people at big companies really do care. And the best part of my job is seeing and hearing all the stories of our people all over the world that care for each other and give back to their community and do the right thing when no one was looking. And those are the things that make you really proud of the organization that you create. And you create an environment where they can do that and it gets recognized and rewarded. So what have I done since I came at Kimberly-Clark? I worked as a CPA for 3 years in public accounting. Kind of knew after a while I didn't really want to be a partner at a CPA firm just because I looked at what it took to be good at that, and that wasn't necessarily what I thought I was good at or what I thought I wanted to do. So I joined internal audit at KC. I really didn't like auditing all that much, but I thought it's a good company, and I don't have to audit all that long, and I'll learn about the business, and maybe I can move into other financial areas. And so I went from there into the corporate finance team and worked on some special finance projects. Got exposure to senior management very early. So part of that is luck of the draw. I was in the right place at the right time where they had the right project, where I had the right skills, and I did a good job. So I got exposed to the CFO and the CEO in my first 3 or 4 years at the company, which is unusual. It was a great opportunity for me. Darwin Smith, who was the CEO, sent me to Stanford to go get my advanced degree, which I think mostly he wanted to be able to move me quicker through the organization. And so often you find executives sponsor people, and a lot of people come into organizations wanting mentors, which are good, but you also really want sponsors, people that will grab you and say, all right, you're going there, and we're going to move you forward quicker. And that certainly happened for me to jumpstart my career in ways that I wouldn't have thought possible. I went out from Stanford to one of our production facilities at Beach Island, South Carolina. On paper, it was a 3-step demotion. So my Stanford classmates were like, geez, Tom, you were a director of corporate strategy in Dallas, and you went to be a operations consultant at Beach Island, which, maybe they're sending you a signal there. Maybe you just got kicked in the head, And I figured I can always go be an accountant. I don't know if I can be a general manager. I don't know if I can be good at plant operations. And it was great because the company made an investment in me. I can tell you, I did not enlarge the world's understanding of how to make diapers while I was at Beach Island. But I learned a ton, and it still helps me to this day as I think about the people that work in our plants and what they care about and how they work every day and how we communicate with them. And so it was a great experience for me. And so you're going to get times during your career where you get offered the chance to jump off the ladder and go do something different. And think about that. It's not always risk-free, but it can be a really exciting opportunity for you to develop and learn new things. I never learned more about how to be a manager than when I was managing outside my home discipline. So in the first morning I went into my morning meeting and I barely knew which diaper machines were mine. And they said, hey, Tom, do you think we should change the slip plates on the sharp modules today? I said, I don't know. What happens if we don't? Do we have the spare parts? Is it a safety problem? Is it a quality problem? How much downtime is involved? Whose machine is this anyway? And by the way, if the answer to the questions isn't obvious, come and see me and I'll make the decision. But it causes people to take ownership for the process. And it forced me my job was to make sure I had the right team, to make sure we were setting objectives at the right level, and then to remove the obstacles from that were getting in the way of their success, and then holding them accountable to go do their jobs every day and not have me be the boss that told them what to do. And so you'll find that, I think, at great companies, people will be challenging you to work up to your level of ability and even stretching you beyond your comfort zone at times. And great leaders will do that, and great people will rise to the occasion and rise to the expectations that you set for them. Then Darwin came to see me in Beach Island and asked if I wanted to get back into finance. And I said, well, I know there's no jobs in finance you'd offer me that I want. And he offered me the chance to get to be vice president of business analysis, which wasn't on the list. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll get back into finance for a while. And I did that. And then from there, started running businesses in the early 90s, ran our diaper business starting in 93. We merged with Scott Paper in 95. And then I became chief operating officer in 2000 and CEO in 2002. Let's see. So what do CEOs do every day? So that's me actually working on a project with our Viva team. So CEOs do some executive type work. So that was a photo op stage to make it look like I was working hard. You guys, you're laughing at that. I'm giving it up there. We were doing a Viva promotion where we were doing like a extreme makeover Boys and Girls Club. Where we actually took some Boys and Girls Club kids and we wound up making over someone's backyard to do something to promote our Viva brand. So it was kind of a fun thing I got to go do with the team. The key things that I focus on, metrics, so typically sales growth, profit growth, margin, market share, stock price would be the key things that I pay attention to. You know, what are some of my deliverables? Have a strong team would be key. Making sure we get the right innovation in the pipeline. Making sure that we're building the right capability in the right places. So as we grow in China or grow in Latin America, that I've got the right people and resource and capability on the ground. And then who are my customers? So my customers are the board of directors. Sometimes people think CEOs don't have bosses. Well, most people only have one boss. CEOs have 12 bosses. The whole board of directors are your boss in many ways, and their number one job is to hire the CEO. Shareholders are key customers. I was on the phone with a shareholder this morning. So usually I usually do 3 full days a quarter of meetings with shareholders. It's after our earnings call and before we get too deep into the next quarter. And we talk to people that either own the stock or that I think should own the stock and make sure they understand what we're trying to do at Kimberly-Clark and how we're running the place and what's important and where we're investing and what kind of growth we expect and what we're going to do with the cash that we generate and what's in it for them as a potential shareholder. And so we do spend a fair amount of time with those groups. I also spend time with customers. So I'll be at Walmart next week teaching in their leadership program and then doing a series of top-to-tops with their executive team to make sure I know how we're performing. And I find that I don't learn very much in my office, but if I get out of my office and go see customers where they live in their offices, you get unfiltered feedback. You don't have the PowerPoint presentation that tells you everything is fine. You actually go and talk to the customer and you find out what's not fine because they're not shy about telling you. And so it is important to get out and spend time in the market with your team, with your customers to get unfiltered feedback and don't let yourselves get trapped by your meeting schedule that you don't get a chance to keep doing that. So I'll talk about 3 areas about ways to approach work as you graduate. So you have to kind of define your approach to leadership. We'll talk a little bit about work-life balance, and then I'll give you a challenge to be the CEO of your own career. So approach to business. My very first day on the job in public accounting, the senior partner in the firm came in and he talked about business. He said, business is simple. He said, you just got to do 3 things. You got to take good care of customers. You got to develop your people. You got to find a way to grow. You do those 3 things, you're going to be good at any business you're in. If you're doing great stuff with customers and they're wanting to do more business with you and they're engaging in long-range planning with you, that's going to keep moving in the right direction. If you're developing people, if you're hiring people that are better than you are, they will push you up the ladder. You will create opportunities for yourself by the strength of your team. And sometimes it takes leaders to be confident enough to really trust in that. But it absolutely does happen. And it would be, it's just an awesome thing to see when you see people pushing their bosses up the ladder. And then find a way to grow. Be thinking about what else can I do? What other needs aren't being met? What other services can I offer? How can I make this business bigger? And so as we think about growing geographically, that's part of it. We look at what markets do we want to go into next. We're poised, ready, and waiting to go into Iran when the sanctions drop. We're also poised, ready, and waiting to go into Cuba when the sanctions drop. So we're ready for those next new market opportunities that we can go in and say, all right, there's a need there. We want to be ready and know what the plan is. We don't want to wait until we find out and then start to do the plan. So, we'll check and adjust as we go, but we're absolutely thinking about what are those next new markets that we can go into. And then what are the next unmet consumer needs we can innovate for and develop new products for. So we've got a lot of work being done in both of those avenues and vectors of growth. So work-family balance. How many believe there is such a thing as work-family balance? Show of hands. I have crushingly disappointing news for you. There is no such thing as work-family balance. Your entire life, you will be slightly out of balance. And my belief is there are three forces in all of our lives that are always competing for our attention. There is your career, there is family, however you define family, and there is self, the things that you do for your own self-development. So you're going to be constantly trading off, what are my job responsibilities, what else do I have to do to progress my career? What are the issues with family, whether that's time with spouse, whether that's kids growing up, whether that's aging ill parents, and every one of us has issues in all those areas that we have to be a part of and want to be a part of throughout our lives. And then self, what are the other things that are important to you to develop, whether that's continuing education or exercise or Bible study or whatever other things you do that make you an interesting person that are fun and bring more color to your life. And you will be constantly trading those things off. And if you're ever too far out of balance for too long, you're not going to be very happy. And so you're going to need to then rebalance a bit and think about, all right, well, I've been on the road for a week. I need to make sure I've got time to do stuff with my family, this weekend, and I'm going to try to, stay in town next week to try to catch up and make sure I'm getting back in balance on that front. Or I skipped workouts 2 days this week. I'm going to take a long run, in the next couple of days to get back on track with my program. And so, for as long as you're constantly checking and rebalancing periodically, you have an interesting, long, full, happy life. What you will find is that the things that don't fit those buckets tend to get pushed out if you're smart. So I don't watch a ton of television anymore because I'm doing other stuff that's in one of those three buckets. And so, I do watch football. So I watched the Cowboys beat the Redskins yesterday and wrote 3 blog posts while I was doing that. We got Cowboy fans here? Yeah, that's all right. Go Cowboys. And then I watched my Green Bay Packers get beat by the Vikings last night, so that wasn't quite as exciting. So anyway, work-family balance, just recognize you're going to get competing tensions. That's normal. It doesn't go away, and at different points in your life, you'll have different pulls on each of those levers, and just recognize you're going to have to eventually rebalance to be happy long term. All right, so last, be CEO of your own career. You can all email mom and dad and tell them or text them and say, hey, I'm a CEO. And CEOs have to do 3 things. They got to deliver results, they got to have a plan for the future, and they got to build some capability in their organization. So if you're CEO of your own career, deliver results in the job that you're in. Everybody has to start out their career being good at something. And so be good at that. Deliver more than what's expected. Figure out what your boss's job is and do part of that if you can. And so, start out by delivering results. That's a key part of whatever your job is, starting a new career. Build capability. What things do you need to work to get better at your chosen profession, either to go deep in a particular area or to go broad and learn some other functions. And you don't have to get that right. I think a lot of times people would say, gosh, Tom, did you know you're going to be CEO when you started? Heck no. No, I mean, none of us really know what we're going to be doing 30 years out. If you can figure out over the next 3 to 5 years, what might I want to do next? That's about as far as any CEO's business plan is any good anyway. So think about that for your career. What are the capabilities you want to build in the next 3 to 5 years? And then work toward that vision. Always know what you might want to do next if anybody asks. And then be open to a more interesting idea if someone comes up with one. And think about how that might take you maybe in a different path to your ultimate objective. So, if you deliver results, if you're building capability, if you got a near-term plan for where you want to go, you will be a great CEO of your career. So that wraps up my prepared remarks, and I would be happy, and this will be more fun, if we start taking your questions. There's a couple of roving microphones around here somewhere. You guys are all pretty happy. Is there one way in the back or no?
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
My name's Amber. I'm a third-year biology major. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more, to expand a little bit more on how you developed your leadership skills to avoid being that boss that tells their employees what to do.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And part of it was, well, I read Dilbert every day, and so my primary goal is to never be the pointy-headed boss or the bald, goofy-looking CEO guy. So I won't ask any of our Kimberly-Clark team that are here if I've fully met that objective or not, but that's my goal. And I think it's a very interesting question. I mean, part of it is forcing myself to get out of my comfort zone and go manage in an area that I didn't know all the answers. So the guy I was following was a diaper machine engineer, so he installed diaper machines for a living, and so he knew what to do and told everyone what to do. And at first, when I started to push that back on the team and ask them to accept accountability for their part of the process, they were, some of them were initially surprised. But I also had some, I had some maintenance mechanics who were actually quite tired of being told what to do and were just waiting for someone to ask them for their ideas. And so if you are strong enough and confident enough to invite others in and share your power, even though you have the power to make the decision, you don't have to make all the decisions. You can include others in your process, and you find that you make better decisions and you'll have a more engaged team if you do it that way. And then be open to learning. As I've added new executives to my team, I added a CMO 8 or 9 years ago, and I've learned a ton about marketing by having the CMO on my team. I had a new chief supply chain officer last year, Sandra McQuillan, and I've learned, I thought I knew something about supply chain, and I've learned a ton by having someone who's really good in that area on my team. And so bringing in new people on your team and getting fresh ideas and being open to it throughout your whole career will make you a better leader going forward. Yeah.
Hey, so obviously Kimberly-Clark is involved in a very natural resource intensive industry, and one of the values you mentioned was care. And so I was wondering what, under your leadership, Kimberly-Clark has done to really care about that issue.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the whole issue of sustainability is relatively new. It's happened kind of in my career. And so, and yet at Kimberly-Clark, we've been practicing sustainability for more than 100 years. We started as a paper company, so we cut down trees and made paper. In those days, no one was around to tell you that you needed to practice sustainable forestry to be in that business. And yet, whoever was running the company 140 years ago said, well, if we cut down one tree, we're going to plant 2 more so that we will always have a endless supply of forestry resources. And so in fact, we manage forests in Canada where it takes almost 100 years to grow trees to cutting height. And 4 or 5 years ago, we won some award for sustainable forestry, and that was because seeds were planted 100 years ago that are now, it's still a beautiful evergreen forest. Probably about in 1995, I picked up the responsibility for our environmental group. And so we started setting 5-year stretch goals on our impact on the environment. And so this is before really anybody cared that much about it. So we wanted to reduce our energy consumption per unit of output. We wanted to reduce our impact of fresh water usage. We wanted to make sure all of our fiber is coming from certified sustainable forests. So we continued to, every 5 years, renew our goals with a new set of stretch goals. And I'd say more recently, you find more people that care about that and ask questions about it. When we started, 20 years ago, no one really knew or cared, but we knew it was the right thing to do. And so we published a sustainability report online, and I would urge you to take a look at it, and you can see the progress that we're making. And we track what our goals are. We also track what our performance is, and we just finished up our 5-year goals in 2015, and we hit virtually all of our goals that we set in 2010, and we recommitted to a new set of goals. This time we went out 7 years. We stretched out to 2022, which is when the company will be 150 years old. Question on the other side.
Hi, Mr. Falk. Thank you for coming in today, taking your time. My name is Dave. I'm in the Scheller School. I was really intrigued that you were talking about people that you had recruited from Kazakhstan, and then you mentioned trying to get into Cuba and Iran, and you mentioned developing people. I was curious strategically how the company goes about sort of setting its sight in this very long-term market situation, opportunity.
Yeah, it is interesting. If there's the nature of the question, so how do you build the right team and right culture in markets like that? Yeah, and it's always a mix of some expats to get started, to plant the culture, but then you've also got to have a local team on the ground that understands the local market nuance. But they've got to operate with the right culture and the right values, particularly internationally. And so where corruption is an issue, you know, you've really got to emphasize ethics as you go about that. And I'd say we've been on a journey on that front. As I look at our markets that have performed the best over time, they've been the markets that had the strong local teams that had the right values. So we've got a fantastic business in South Korea. It's about nearly $1 billion business, leading market shares in every category. And it's nearly an all Korean team. Language is a challenge there, so you really got to be embedded in the local culture. China today for us is nearly an all Chinese team. When we started 25, 30 years ago, I mean, all the leaders were expats. We struggled. We eventually built the right culture and then built the right local leadership team. And then what you can have happen is, you know, today, like the guy who runs Europe, Middle East, and Africa for us is Argentinian. The guy who runs Italy for us is a Colombian. You know, we just moved an Israeli in to run Australia. So you can then pick your leaders up and transplant them where language and culture allow for it. There are some places in the world where it's tougher to do, but increasingly, you know, it's easier for your best people to get multi-geographic experiences.
Thank you for being here. My question is, based on Kimberly-Clark is such a really awesome company in terms of diversity, sustainability, things that millennials really care about, it made me wonder why, in terms of governance, we think about duality as not chairman and CEO having the same role, yeah, both for you and for Abernathy at Halyard Health. I wonder what the Kimberly-Clark and Halyard Health thinking is in terms of that. Is that not progressive, or does it just not work for you? And
yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think you find in Europe they've tended to split the roles, but then they don't have as strong of a lead director per se. And the non-executive chair is sort of not a totally independent director. They're at the company 2 or 3 days a week. It's kind of a part-time job. And so most American companies haven't adopted that, but they have a strong lead director. So, so I review our board work plan, our board agendas with my lead director, and he approves those before the meeting. And then if we're doing any kind of other long-range planning, we'll work with a subset of the board on that pretty actively. And so I'd say most American companies have not split. And if you look at the governance results or the level of failure of governance between the two geographies, you don't really find a clear, compelling case for one or the other. And it's probably just a little bit more efficient for me to take my chairman hat off and put my CEO hat on and go back and forth. But I probably talk or email with my lead director, you know, I'd say once a week about something. So
first of all, thank you for the wonderful presentation. I think the slides were 3, but it really helped me a lot. So when you were moving up the chain, what was your approach to handle the political conflicts? Like, what worked for you, what not? Like with your peers, Because when you're moving up, a lot of people are not happy, some people are happy, right? And then what worked with your boss? Like, what kind of influence or what strategies one can use?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I guess I would say I didn't worry too much about my peers. I worried about my team and my results. And I'd say every company has politics. At Kimberly-Clark, more of the politics is about doing what's right for the business than doing what's right for my individual career. And so people that are very politically motivated about jockeying for position in my own and advantaging my own career usually don't do very well, because they eventually get found out. And so I wasn't trying to get ahead of anybody. I was being moved forward quickly by the executive team. And when I got my first big P&L role, so I took over our diaper business in 1993, which at that time was our largest P&L. It was a $2.5 billion business making several hundred million a year. There were 2 or 3 guys that thought they were going to get the job that were kind of competing with each other. And when I got the job, initially I was worried they might feel bad about that, but they almost said I didn't count, because if one of the other guys had gotten it, they would have felt bad because they were competing with them. But because they didn't see themselves as really competing with me, it didn't bother them that much. It's like, I'm okay as long as that guy didn't get it, you know, because then I'm behind. But I was never competing with you anyway. So I don't know if that answered your question. In terms of, that was the point about mentors and sponsorship, in that a lot of times people want mentors, and mentors can be very helpful to you to understand, you know, if you got assigned to this project or your performance review said this, what does that really mean here, and what do I need to think about in that context? Sponsors, you might not even be aware you're being sponsored. Early on, I wasn't aware I was being sponsored. I knew I was being offered opportunities, and if I had been dumb and said no, and was unwilling to relocate, I physically moved 7 times in the first 10 years I was with the company. And so I had a very understanding wife who was willing to rearrange her career priorities to help my career advance. And I to this day am very appreciative of the sacrifice that she made, and wound up being a stay-at-home mom and created a great life for our son and for me. Now, that's not the only way that it works. You're seeing these days just as many stay-at-home dads, and you're also seeing 2 career couples where they make it work and they get more outside help. And so there's more than one model. Moving 2 career couples is trickier, but we do it all the time. You know, we have people moving all over the place, and we find ways to make it work for everybody. And in terms of how you manage your boss, I would say, again, be honest about what your expectations are, and ask for what do I need to do to get to the job that I'm looking for, and get their honest assessment. And sometimes you might not want to hear the answer, but ask what's it going to take, or what experience do I need to go get? And if you don't think you need it, then that's a good honest conversation to have at some point. Yeah.
Hi, I am a 5th-year PhD student. So my question is that you mentioned that I think your products reach 25% of the world population.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, like, I know pharma is trying to move toward developing countries to try to increase their market size. So what is Kimberly-Clark doing to try to rise that 25 to other numbers?
So the challenge is that there's places like India where there's a lot of people and they don't have very much money, and our categories are really, really small. And even if you go into the center of China, the categories are very small and not well developed. In Africa today, there are more babies born in Nigeria every year than in all of Western Europe combined, and yet the diaper category is very small because they don't have very much income. So as people move up the GDP per capita curve, they have more money to spend in categories like ours. And you first start to see bathroom tissue, and then low-end fem care, and then value diapers, and there may be some very wealthy consumers at the upper end that will buy those products in smaller boutique shops, but to get to those really being a mass market, we'd look at it in the US and say, on average, consumers in the U.S. that are in the diaper category use 5 or 6 diapers a day. In some emerging markets, they might use 1 diaper a day. It might just be for overnight. So they might be in the category, but they're really not, it's not fully penetrated. Okay.
Thank you for coming out today. Kimberly-Clark has a large supply chain with many suppliers and manufacturing facilities. How do you manage risk with the employers in the value chain?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's becoming more and more important. So we're a big Disney licensee, and so we put if we put Mickey or Minnie or Winnie the Pooh on our Huggies products, you would think babies don't care, but they really do. I mean, they. In fact, I was talking to one of our key customers, and he said, "You know who the decision maker for pull-ups is, don't you?" And I said, "Absolutely do. The 3-year-old in the cart is deciding which designs he's going to wear or she's going to wear. They want the cars or the princesses, and so and so understanding how do you manage that. So we do a ton of auditing. We do supplier certifications where they've got to go through and attest to what they're doing, and if we discover that they're in violation, it can mean loss of their business to us. So we take it very seriously.
Hello, I'm Jose Rodriguez, a 4th-year industrial engineering major, and I was wondering, you earlier mentioned how you have to find a balance between work, family, and yourself. How long did it take you, for example, to get to a balance, or how do you get to a balance?
Yeah, well, you should probably talk to my wife about that because she might say that I still haven't got it figured out quite right. But I would say, what I have found is that when you're with your family, to be with your family. So if I pull my phone out at a family dinner, I get the skunk eye and I deserve it, right? So I'm engaged in conversation with my family. I am not doing work, or I'll get up and go into another room and if I really have to take a call or do work. So it is being present in the moment with whoever you're with. And so that's true when you're at work. That's true when you're with your family. And then it's pushing the things out of your life that don't add value. So I like to exercise, so I exercise early in the morning usually because my wife's sleeping and I'm not taking time away from anybody else but me at that point in time. And so if we're on a family vacation, my son and wife can sleep later than I can, so if I've got work to do, I'll do it early in the morning, and then when they're up and about, it gets put away and we go do the family vacation. And so you just get better at it, but it's really trying to compartmentalize it because you think you're faking it and they can't tell. They can tell every time. So I just think being we will have times where it's super busy and maybe there are times where you get out of balance. I was on a family vacation one time and I was on an outside board that was in the middle of a kind of a crisis, and we're on a sunset cruise, and literally the sun is about to go below the horizon, and my wife is there, and my son is there, and his girlfriend was there. It's kind of a nice family moment, and I get a call from the CEO of this company who needed to talk about the crisis. And that wasn't good, but but on the other hand, it doesn't happen every trip. So you will occasionally have issues where you're out of balance. You just got to recognize it and try to get back in balance.
Better?
Better.
I'm a first-year MBA student, and I know that over the course of your career as a CEO at Kimberly-Clark, you've introduced several very successful cost-cutting and financial accountability initiatives, like the Global Business Plan and the FORCE initiative. It's great to celebrate the success of this now that we know that the FORCE initiative itself saved like over $3 billion over the last 13 years. But I'm sure when you first introduced those, there were a certain degree of resistance to change. So my question to you would be, first, how as a leader did you manage that resistance and manage that change and make sure that it is communicated effectively? And second, what advice would you give to a new leader or project manager who is trying to influence that change in their organization without having the formal authority of the CEO?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the FORCE program is a great example of a story to tell you how this really works in real life. Sometimes when you see programs that CEOs talk about, you might think that the CEO thought of all of that stuff themselves, that they're just super smart and they have all the best ideas. That's not actually how it works. And so the FORCE program was started by our KCP team, which is our KC Professional Business, based just up the road in Atlanta, where we have a number of fine Georgia Tech graduates. And so in fact, across Kimberly-Clark, I think we have over 100 Georgia Tech alums, and I think we've got 20 or 30 co-op students around. So, and it originated there, and it was a really good idea. And as I observed what they were doing, it helped me think about what was possible in a different way. And so I took that idea and then socialized it with the rest of the leadership team, put a small group to help get it going, and launched it. And so a lot of times as a leader, it's swiping an idea, finding something that works, and then helping scale it in a way. And so, and oftentimes you need to socialize it. So like when I brought in a new chief supply chain officer, the first thing I did was I did a little org project with a team to kind of benchmark how are other organizations structured in that way. What would report into this role? We did a little decision rights matrix. So what decisions would this new position make? Then I did a half-day workshop with my leadership team to talk about the role and what concerns would they have, what would excite them about the role. And we went through the decision rights matrix. This is before I even had the first interview with any candidates, because I wanted to make sure that if I had resistance in the organization, that I knew about it early so that I could either overcome it or in some cases adapt the plan and take some of their feedback. And and you will find both of those examples. You will occasionally have, I've had situations during my career where someone had a really good point to make and an objection, and had some good thoughts on how to do it in a different way that would be more effective. And being smart enough to take that feedback and course correct and not have to win every argument, even though you can. And then I've also had other times where I had people that, on any change initiative, I tend to look at my team and think about who is already fully in the boat, that's rowing hard with me no matter what, who's kind of on the fence, if they've sensed momentum is building, they'll jump on, and then who is wanting to go in the opposite direction. And I've had on several occasions in my career, I go for a quiet dinner or a drink and say, okay, this is really important to me. I am going here. I need you to be with me on this. And if you can't, then we need to talk about how you go do something else. And you do it in a professional way. But that is your job as a leader. If you decide that this is a course of action that is important to your team to go do, you have to get your team aligned behind you. And they aren't ever going to all be 100%. But if you've got a critical leader on your team that is not wanting to go where you want to go, that's a problem for you. And your odds of successfully implementing it are not very good. So you're better off addressing it in the front end as much as you can than waiting until it crashes. All these Kimberly-Clark guys are nodding. They probably can tell stories about me here. So. Yep.
Check. Adrian Mir, first year executive MBA. Just a quick question. How important is it to start to get into a people management role versus focusing on money? I play a sales role now, and I meet a ton of sales guys that make a lot of money but are not moving up. However, their W-2s are moving up. When do you think is important for individuals like us to start focusing on people management, and how important is that to moving up the chain?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially in sales. And sometimes in sales, you find people that are really way better at sales than people management. And oftentimes we make the mistake of promoting the top sales guy into a people management role, and it's not what they're really good at or what they like to do. And so it's also thinking about, what is your ultimate career objective? We talked about that, the CEO of your own career. So if you're delivering results and you're killing it against your sales targets, that's fantastic. What capability are you going to build? Do you want to be a bigger sales rep, or do you really want to move into general management? And then what else do you need? Do you need marketing? Do you need some other functional capability to get into a general manager role, not just a sales manager role? And I think often that can be a trap, is that we get into a leadership role without clear path of what it's going to lead us to. And so I'd challenge that. I'd say, not everybody needs to be a GM or a team leader. On the other hand, most of us at some point in time pivot from being a doer to being a leader. And so we go from being the expert at something into having a team of people that work for us. And so your career will go through, there's different pivot points. You start out as a really good doer at something, you pivot to being a team leader, you may pivot to being a functional leader or a general manager and maybe a leader of leaders. And depending on how high and how far your career goes, you have those turning points in your career where you've got to learn a new set of skills. You've got to, hopefully you're being developed along the way so you're ready for it. But it starts with where do you want to go and what do you want to do? And if you really want to be the very best salesperson and that's really what your dream is, then maybe you don't need to be a people manager. On the other hand, the leader of our Walmart team has almost 100 people on his team, and he's got a $3 billion account. So he is a hell of a sales leader, and he's also got a big people management experience.
Hi, my name is Leia. I'm an undergrad. I'm studying HR and especially interested in organizational behavior. So I was just curious if you could speak more about this almost 150 years of this huge people managing huge monster of a company and kind of how the culture has changed over that span of time and especially since you've been in with the business.
Yeah, no, I think getting people to work together is the most frustrating and most rewarding part of most of these jobs. And so, and are you familiar with something called the STAR model? Have you ever heard of that? So the guy named Jay Galbraith who invented the STAR model, and I did a consulting project with him on org design. And so STAR model starts with your strategy, whatever it is you want to do at the top. And then the other points of the STAR are org design, process, people, and rewards. And execution of any successful strategy is a combination of all those things. So you've got to think about it. Do you have the right organization structure? Do you have the right processes in place? The right decision rights, the right tools and systems? Do you have the right people? Do you need different capability to do what you want to go do? You don't have that in your organization. And then do you have the right incentives aligned? So when I created the new marketing role, it was we wanted to get better at marketing everywhere. We needed to build our capabilities. So we had a strategy that we wanted to get better at marketing. So the org structure was to create a CMO, a central marketing capability. We also had to build a lot of marketing processes and tools and begin to train more of our team in what does it mean to be a good marketer and recalibrate on where the bar was. I had to go recruit some great marketing talent from outside so that our team could see, all right, if you thought the bar was here and I think the bar is really here, I need to bring in some marketers at that level so that you can raise your game. And then some people said, you know what, I can't get there, so I'm going to go work somewhere else. But a lot of people said, you know what, I can get there. I didn't know that was where I had to go, but I can definitely get there. And they raised their game. And then you align your incentives with that. And so, I think that is the most important part of leadership is getting people to collaborate and work better together. And we all operate in these matrix organizations where we have, the P&L is owned in a geography and the functions all have global purview to look across companies in finance or HR or supply chain or marketing and try to add value to the local businesses. And it's a very tricky, challenging operating environment, but it's also very rewarding, and it can be a huge competitive advantage when it works well. Good leaders figure that out and create an environment where people make the right decisions. But no, it's the most exciting part of the job in many ways.
Tom, thanks for coming to Georgia Tech today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thank you guys.
Thank you.